Hello everyone. This video is probably going to end up being a bit weird. If you watch my channel a lot, maybe that's something you've come to expect. If you have, that's honestly something I'm pretty satisfied with. But this one is probably going to be weird in a slightly different way. I am going to talk about Tekken in it, but I sort of necessarily also have to talk about something else because of where I'm at right now. I can't make the video I want to make right now because of something that happened to me earlier today. I had this plan, my notes for the video jotted down. I was going to get off early, by which I mean I was going to leave work earlier than usual. I wasn't going to prematurely ejaculate, and then go home, record a quick fun video on Nerfina, and then just have a chill evening. But then, it's honestly kind of weird. Like, how do you describe it? A violent psychopath came into the office building where I work, assaulted a couple of my co-workers, and then tried to kill my boss. And me and one other coworker had to restrain him, and in the process of that I was injured. I'm going to be absolutely fine. I was punched several times in the head and it's kind of swollen right now. My jaw is a bit fucked up and it hurts when I chew, but it's the kind of thing that's going to get better in a couple of days. I was trying to choke him out from behind, and my hand ended up in his mouth and he bit down really hard on my thumb, which fucked it up a bit. I'm gonna show you a picture of it here just to let you know that I'm not making this whole thing up. It genuinely did happen to me today. But as you can tell, it's not that bad. It's this is when it just happened. Right now it's gone kind of, disgusting and purple looking, but the finger still moves and I think it's gonna be fine. I can't play Tekken, which is why I can't make a video right now, because I can't play the game and talk at the same time. I'm a pad player, so I use my left thumb for all of my movement. And it's funny, I spent the last 7 or 8 hours in a tiny interrogation room in a Japanese police station, giving the same statement like 20 times. They had to take pictures and reenact the whole thing and get fingerprints, and it was very Kafkaesque and honestly probably the most stressful part of the whole thing, because I just kept saying, I'm really exhausted. My head hurts. I would like to go to the hospital. I would like to go home. But they kept asking me to stay because they had to get more paperwork done and do the same thing over and over. But eventually they let me go. And I got home just like 30 minutes ago. My friends were calling me. And first thing I said was, he fucked up my thumb and I can't Korean backdash. And they were laughing and making fun of me. I guess that's Tekken addiction for you. He was the IT guy, a support guy who comes in sometimes and helps us with computer stuff. I didn't know him, talked to him maybe twice. I knew that he was a gamer. I knew that he was up late last couple of nights playing Cyberpunk. Taller than me, kind of big and heavy, which became a problem. And he had some sort of money dispute with the owner of the company, my boss, and that's what started the whole thing. He walked over to a workstation where a female coworker sits, and he punched straight through her computer monitor. He kicked her computer to pieces, tore her chair apart, and then he picked up a calculator and started smashing it into my boss's head. And he got cut really bad and he was bleeding. Had to go to the hospital with an ambulance. I called him a bit earlier. Apparently he's going to be okay. They stitched him up and he's going to be discharged tomorrow. So he sounds, like he's awake and going to be absolutely fine. And then he saw my boss's wife standing there and he ran over to her. She's like a tiny 40-year-old Chinese woman, and he started punching her in the chest over and over. And that's when me and the one other guy who works in the office had to, try and do something. And yeah. So eventually we got him to calm down, and it was really weird because he really just wasn't there. And once he'd calmed down, he was crawling around on the floor looking for his glasses. He has these like big, thick black glasses and he can't see without them. And he said to me in English, I can't see without my glasses. Would you help me find my glasses? And I was standing there with a nosebleed, saying, you just try to bite my finger off, dude. I'm not going to help you look for your glasses. But at that point it was kind of like he was back. And he was sort of screaming, you know, going berserk the whole time in Chinese. He's a Chinese guy that has nothing to do with what happened, except for the fact that I don't really understand Mandarin. But later, a coworker told me that what he had been screaming at me was, "Why are you getting involved? I don't even know you. Are you going to bully me with the rest of them? Are you going to make fun of me like everybody else?" And that kind of destroyed me a little bit. It was like, dude, what, you know, what did they do to you? What did this life do to you? And when I left the police station, I saw him. I was walking down the corridor, and they were taking him from his interrogation room, cell, whatever, to the bathrooms. And, you know, I thought he'd been in handcuffs, but for some reason, I guess it's how they do it here in Japan, they had him tied with ropes. There's a rope around his stomach and his chest, and a policeman was walking behind him, sort of pulling on this rope like he was some sort of animal. It was so weird. And he was like muttering how sorry he was to everybody. And then, yeah, I came home and I can't sleep. I needed to do something to sort of get the taste of this whole thing out of my mouth, you know. So I turned on my microphone and I started talking, and here we are. Now, the video I wanted to make today was on Nerfina. Basically, I haven't played a lot of Season 4 online yet because I've had some weird bugs with it. It's been really buggy. I've been randomly demoted when I haven't really been losing. I've had disconnects that, you know, weren't plugging or anything. And then when I log back in, even though I didn't cause the disconnect, I've been penalized for that. And then when you do get matches, it's been, you know, 50% Kunimitsu. And I don't have to tell you how fun it is to play that character, you know, 6 times in a row, with the never-ending mix-ups and the never-ending combos. But that's by the by. So I was kind of waiting, playing some World of Warcraft Shadowlands, you know, and I wanted to let Season 4 sizzle out a little bit and calm down, and then really get back into online grinding and trying to get those high ranks in the new season. So this week, what I wanted to do was play through all the different characters that I really enjoy and decide who I want to main this season. I want to go deep on one single character. So I can't go into practice mode right now, like I said, and talk about these things because I can't really move and like backdash and do combos right now. So I'm just showing some footage here in the background of a couple of matches I played this week, trying different characters, moving around and getting a feel for what they are like in this season. And I had a lot of fun with Bob. Man, is that character cool right now. Not really because of the Season 4 changes, in my opinion. I mean, people get moist and erect when a character gets new launchers, especially if one of them can be compared to an Electric Wind Godfist, the most moist and erect move in all of Tekken. But I think it's just going to be a sort of portal that allows more people to realize that the amazingly fun and cool character of Bob was sort of there all along. I think the Season 3 buffs to him were honestly bigger than the Season 4 ones. You know, stuff like the counter properties on down back 3. I think that's pretty big, for example. And then I played some Negan. I really enjoyed that. I played some Elisa, and she's the same old Elisa. You know, my main in the previous season. The buff, nerf to her down jab. It's honestly a bigger nerf than I would have expected. So she's kind of a little bit weaker, but sort of the same. But then I ended up with Nerfina, and I really did not think I would enjoy her much in this season. She was one of the 2 characters I got to max rank last season, one of my 2 primes, so one of the characters that I played the most. But some of my favorite aspects of her, like the Cursed Crow, my favorite move design in all of Tekken pretty much, her down forward one, her up forward one, these great moves that I really enjoy hitting with. They have a lot of like visceral, nice feel to them, had significant nerfs, even had their hit sparks removed in some cases, and that made the character less satisfying to play to me. At least when I was trying these things in practice mode. But then I started playing her and I realized that I enjoy her so much despite all these things, that this is the character I want to play in this season. And I think the main thing that made me make that decision is if you play a character like Miguel or Elisa, and you will definitely know this if you play these characters, and maybe you have a similar feeling if you're playing another character who is like flawed and not very, well fleshed out in terms of design is you can have a lot of fun with them, but then eventually you run into an opponent who really knows how to play against your character and what to do. In the case of Eliza, who will duck for 4-3-4, who will consistently block the Moonglide mix-up, who will backdash when they're supposed to, so that you will always miss your clean hit on the down 3 DP2, for example, stuff like that. And then you feel very toothless. There's not much you can do, and you end up sort of moving on to a different opponent. And then if they don't have that one thing where they've downloaded your character, then you can start competing more effectively again. But with Zafina, the character is strong enough and has real mix-ups and can mount pressure and has that great movement that even when you're losing, there's always a way for you to fight back. You always feel like you're losing on your own terms or winning on your own terms with this character. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that she's good, which is a rarity for the characters that I play, but she's good mainly because of her fantastic movement. And the interesting thing about a character that is good because of movement, it's similar to Kazumi in the earlier seasons. The character is good, but only good if the player is, because it's something that scales with player ability. If your character has good movement, you can only capitalize on that if you as a player have good movement, and I really appreciate that. So it sort of ends up feeling like this is the character that causes me the least frustration. And I think that's honestly, when you're playing Tekken a lot, sometimes every day, sometimes for hours at a time, that is not an aspect to underestimate in a character, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them, and it's going to be emotional at times. It can be a real roller coaster. I want to tie back into what I talked about a little bit earlier, and I want to tell another story. I don't expect anybody to still be listening at this point in the video, but I'm doing this as much for my own sake, so that I can get some sleep later. But about 5 years ago, which honestly was probably the most fun period in my life, at least so far, when I was still a student here in Japan, and me and my friends would just fuck around every day and spend entire days in the arcade learning about Tekken. We were at Taito Station, which is a famous arcade here, playing some Tekken. And one of my best friends ever, I love this guy. We went to university together. We picked up the game together. He's someone, who means a lot to me, but he has a bit of a temperament on him, which is not to say that he's an angry or violent person at all. He just gets very, very intense about things. And we were playing Tekken on these cabinets, and he just had one of those days where he was losing all the time to like dumb shit, and the more he tried to do better or get creative or not make the same mistakes, it just got worse and worse and worse, to the point where his opponent was doing snake edges and teabagging and all the rest of it. So he was really frustrated, and we were about to leave and go to dinner, and his girlfriend came over. They just met and they were madly in love. These days they're actually married. They have 2 kids. It's crazy that all of this has happened during the lifespan of a single Tekken game. They live in a different country here in Asia now, and they run a small chain of restaurants and resorts. He's done very well for himself. But he was super frustrated, and his girlfriend could tell, so she sort of came up and sat next to him and put her arms on his shoulders. But he was so frustrated and so focused that he kind of shrugged her off. He jerked really, I'm not going to say violently, but, it was a big shrug. And she lost her balance and she fell to the ground, or the floor, and the entire room sort of froze, because it was one of those moments where it just got kind of dark for a second. And then, like the sound just disappeared, and then she got back up and dusted herself off, and it wasn't a big deal, and we moved on with our day. I expect that they probably had an argument about that later when they were alone, but it was an example of someone doing something they really regretted later, and just, momentarily losing control because of frustration caused by this game. Because of a failure to contain that frustration, and a failure with anger. We've talked about this before on my channel. I'm old enough now and I've played this game for long enough that I don't, I'm kind of cool as a cucumber for the most part when I play this game. I've managed to stop caring that much about stuff like rank. I've stopped caring as much about stuff like, you know, cheapness and balance. It's kind of a survival skill you have to have if you're going to play this game long term. But back in the day when I was much younger and picking up Tekken for the first time, I would yell at the screen. I've probably thrown controllers at least a few times, and I think most people who play these games have. And if you go on YouTube or on streaming services, you can find people, and this is like some of the darkest parts for me about being a YouTuber. It's the reason I wasn't going to do it when I first made the channel. You can find people who have let their frustrations over games like this basically define them and then subsequently more or less ruin their lives, turning them into laughing stocks that people sort of pity. And I guess the point I want to get to here is that you have to be nice to yourself, and it's very important when that frustration flares up to see it for what it is and to work on yourself, to work on stopping yourself, you know. Not that I think my viewers or me or anybody else, you know, necessarily becomes violent or breaks things when they lose that Tekken, even though that can definitely happen to some people too. But if you're going to play the game often and a lot, and all of these fucking negative things just swirl inside of your heart every time, it's going to darken you for sure, and it's not going to lead to anything positive. That doesn't mean that the game isn't cheap, that people aren't basically cheating, that Namco doesn't put out overpowered character designs, that Kunimitsu isn't cancer, that your opponent isn't being unfair or disrespectful, because those things definitely happen, but you are at least in charge of what you allow that to do to you. And I think that's really important. So yeah, this kind of ended up turning into a weird video about anger and a little bit about Nerfina, a character that has a monster inside of her that she's struggling to contain. You know, she kind of, you know, flares up and tries to smash somebody with her purple hand, but then in the middle of it she regains her composure and she makes it back. And I think that's really the skill to develop. And just know that when you get frustrated with this game, or, I mean, let's not turn everything into a story about this game, just in life in general, that's definitely not something that's unique to you. Us YouTubers and streamers who make videos talking about these games, you know, we try and make an effort to make everything, you know, look effortless and cool and like we're just breezing through. But when we play this game online, it tears a chunk out of us the same way it does out of you every time, because it requires focus and concentration, you know, and some serious emotional involvement sometimes. So it can be taxing, and be nice to yourself, and I guess be aware that out there are people who are just dealing with so many things that if you can ease their suffering by destroying them in Tekken in a way that isn't, you know, as disrespectful as possible, maybe you're actually doing somebody a favor. I feel a bit better now. And it's great because I use this channel as a bit of an outlet and a therapeutic thing for myself a lot of the time. And now you had to suffer through a video where I kind of just ramble about my thoughts instead of, you know, giving you information. But maybe just this once, that's okay. And I'll make something more traditional and informative next time. But thank you so much for being out there. You know, that last video I made about cheating, I had a lot of fun with that one, and it seems like you guys did too. It was one of the best comment sections we've ever had on one of my videos, I think, and I still you know, check in, you know, once a day and laugh at some of the comments. Even the ones that were, you know, negative, so to speak, were very constructive and insightful. And I've said it before, but I do believe I have the best viewership on YouTube, and I really appreciate that. So there you go. I'm probably going to have a drink and then try and get some sleep, and then tomorrow I have to go to the hospital and just have a quick look at, you know, my head, and then hopefully within a day or two my thumb will be in a state where I can Korean backdash cancel again, and then I'll be playing a lot of Tekken and a lot of Nerfina and enjoying myself as usual. Thank you so very much for watching this, and I'll see you guys again very soon.